And on this sunny Silverstone summer Sunday, welcome to our home. Not just Martin and I's
Blazing
home,
speeds, split-second decisions, and high-stakes drama. Formula One is the pinnacle of motorsport, but it's also unforgiving. When matches fail or drivers push beyond the limits, the results can be catastrophic. Some crashes don't just end races, they change the sport forever. This is the true tragedy of Formula One's worst crashes in history. Story 1. Tom Price, 1977. Racing at speeds of 170 miles per hour is always dangerous, but what happened at the 1977 South African Grand Prix was something no one could have anticipated. Tom Price, a talented driver known for his remarkable skills behind the wheel, was having an ordinary race day. After a poor start, Price began to climb back up the leaderboard. By lap 22, he was gaining momentum, passing competitors one by one. But then, chaos unfolded on the main straight. Renzo Zorzi, one of Price's teammates, had pulled over to the side of the track after his car caught fire. Zorzi was struggling to disconnect the oxygen pipe from his helmet, leaving him trapped in a fiery vehicle. This alarming situation prompted two marshals from the pit lane to run across the live track with fire extinguishers to help. The first marshal made it across, but the second, 19-year-old Frederik Janssen van Vuren, wasn't as fortunate. Carrying a 40-pound extinguisher, Van Vuren stepped directly into Price's car's path, speeding down the straight at an astonishing 170 miles per hour. The collision was devastating. The impact threw Van Vuren's body into the air, dismembering him instantly, while the fire extinguisher struck Price's helmet with such force that it ripped his head back, killing him on the spot. Price's car, now out of control, continued down the straight at full speed, colliding with another car before smashing into the barriers. The marshal's body was so badly mutilated that officials had to summon all marshals to confirm his identity. The South African Grand Prix continued, and Niki Lauda claimed the win. But even Lauda admitted that the victory felt hollow after such a horrific tragedy. This horrifying moment in F1 history left an indelible mark on everyone involved. But if you think that's the most terrifying thing to happen in Formula One, the story of Gilles Villeneuve's crash is equally chilling. Story 2. Gilles Villeneuve, 1982. Gilles Villeneuve was the epitome of passion and raw talent in Formula One. Fans adored his fearless driving style, which often pushed the limits of what was possible on the track. But the fearlessness would ultimately lead to a tragic end during the 1982 Belgian Grand Prix at Zolder. Villeneuve had been chasing an elusive goal to out-qualify his teammate Didier Pironi, who had set a faster lap time. Some say Villeneuve's determination to beat Pironi stemmed from lingering bitterness after a controversial race weeks earlier. Regardless, Villeneuve was on a mission, speeding through the final qualifying session with just minutes left on the clock. As Villeneuve came barreling down a fast section of the track, he approached Jochen Mass, who was driving significantly slower. Mass, noticing Villeneuve's rapid approach, instinctively moved to the right to let him pass. Tragically, Villeneuve had the same idea and also veered right. The Ferrari collided with the rear of Mass's car, and what happened next was nothing short of horrifying. Villeneuve's car was launched into the air, soaring over 100 meters before crashing nose first into the ground. The force of the impact caused the car to disintegrate, throwing Villeneuve, still strapped to his seat, another 50 meters into the catch fence. His helmet had been ripped off during the crash, and the scene left onlookers in stunned silence. Other drivers, including John Watson and Derek Warwick, rushed to help, pulling Villeneuve from the mangled wreckage. Despite their efforts, Villeneuve's injuries were catastrophic. He had suffered a fatal neck fracture and was rushed to the hospital, but it was too late. That evening, the 32-year-old racing legend was pronounced dead. Villeneuve's death rocked the Formula One community, not just because of the gruesome nature of the crash, but because of what he represented to the sport. His daring and fearless approach to racing endeared him to fans, and his loss felt like the end of an era. Story 3. Wolfgang von Trips, 1961. In 1961, Italian Grand Prix at Monza will forever be remembered as one of the Formula One's darkest days. Wolfgang von Trips, a German driver on the brink of winning the World Championship, met a devastating end in what would become the deadliest crash in the sport's history. It all happened on the second lap of the race. Von Trips, driving his Ferrari, was locked in a fierce battle with Jim Clark, an up-and-coming star in a Lotus. As they sped down the straight leading to the Parabolica curve, their cars touched. It was a small mistake, but with catastrophic consequences. Von Trips' Ferrari veered off course, slamming into an embankment before becoming airborne. The car flew into a densely packed crowd of spectators, transforming the scene into sheer chaos. 15 spectators were killed instantly, and Von Trips was thrown from his car. The injuries he sustained were so severe that he didn't make it to the hospital alive. Witnesses were horrified as they watched the carnage unfold, with debris, bodies, and pieces of the car scattered everywhere. The race continued despite the tragedy, an unimaginable decision by today's standards. To make matters worse, Von Trips had been leading the championship standings at the time. A win at Monza would have cemented his legacy as a world champion. Jim Clark, who had been involved in the collision, was deeply affected. Initially accused of causing the crash, he was later exonerated when footage revealed that Von Trips' car had moved into his path. Clark would go on to describe the moment as one of the most traumatic of his career, haunted by the knowledge that a split-second event had led to so much loss. And yet, Formula One continued to see tragedy in those early years. Just a few years earlier, another champion's life had been cut short under equally shocking circumstances. Story 4. Alberto Ascari, 1955. Alberto Ascari, a two-time world champion, was one of the most celebrated drivers of his time. But 1955 was a year of both near miracles and ultimate heartbreak for the Italian legend. It started at the Monaco Grand Prix, where Ascari came dangerously close to death. During the race, he misjudged a corner and crashed his car into the harbor. The sight of a Formula One car plunging into the water shocked everyone watching. Ascari, trapped inside, escaped with only a broken nose and a few bruises. Fans breathed a sigh of relief, believing they had witnessed a miracle. Little did they know this was only the beginning of his tragic story. 4 days later, Ascari went to Monza, not to race, but to watch his friend Eugenio Castellotti test a Ferrari. At the track, he decided to take a few laps himself. Ascari wasn't wearing his usual blue helmet, his lucky charm that he never raced without. Instead, he borrowed Castellotti's helmet and got into the car dressed in his street clothes. What followed was a moment of unexplainable horror. As Ascari rounded a fast curve on his third lap, the car skidded violently, flipped twice, and landed on its nose. Ascari, thrown from the vehicle, lay motionless on the track. By the time help arrived, it was too late. Ascari had suffered multiple fatal injuries and died within minutes. What made Ascari's death even more eerie were the parallels to his father, Antonio Ascari, who had also been a racing champion. Both father and son died at the age of 36, leaving behind their wives and 2 children. Both were involved in serious accidents just days before their deaths, and both crashed while exiting high-speed left-hand corners. Even their career stats bore uncanny similarities, with both winning 13 Grand Prix races. Ascari's passing devastated the racing world. More than 1 million fans gathered in Milan to pay their respects at his funeral. Tributes poured in from around the globe, with fellow racers like Juan Manuel Fangio and Sterling Moss describing him as one of the greatest talents Formula One had ever seen. Story 5. Roland Ratzenberger, 1994. The San Marino Grand Prix weekend in 1994 will always be remembered as one of the darkest in Formula One history. For Roland Ratzenberger, it was supposed to be his moment to shine in his 3rd ever Formula One race. But what unfolded was a devastating accident that shook the entire racing world. It started during Saturday's final qualifying session. Earlier in the weekend, Ratzenberger had gone off track, damaging the front wing of his Simtech. Instead of pitting, he continued on, not realizing just how compromised his car had become. Moments later, disaster struck. As he approached the Villeneuve curva at over 190 miles per hour, the front wing finally gave way. Without steering control, the car slammed head-on into a bare concrete wall. The force of the impact was catastrophic, registering an unbelievable 500 Gs. Medical teams were on the scene within seconds, but the damage was irreversible. Ratzenberger suffered multiple fatal injuries, including a basilar skull fracture and a ruptured aorta. Despite their best efforts, doctors confirmed his death shortly after he arrived at the hospital. It was the first fatality during a Formula One race weekend in over a decade, and it left everyone reeling. Formula One was forever changed that weekend, with new safety measures introduced in the years that followed. But the memory of Ratzenberger's crash remains a painful reminder of the risks these drivers take. This was Formula One's worst crashes in history.